Welcome to the last Imperial Interlude for 2020. With me, as always, is Ralph. Hello, Ralph.
Hi, Tim.
So, um, I'll just repeat what I said to you when I finished this episode. Holy fuck.
Are we
And
going to put
again,
a spoiler warning at the front of this,
spoilers,
shall we?
mega spoilers, planetary sized spoilers. If you have not seen the last episode of The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 8, Chapter 16, stop listening now. Don't go anywhere on the internet. Watch this episode now.
Yeah, avoid the internet. And if you haven't avoided the internet, sorry.
Yes, even if people tried to be sneaky about it, just after seeing the episode, they fucked it up for a lot of people.
Yes, they did. There was lots of unhappy people. People on Twitter going, "I haven't seen it yet." Well,
Yeah, it's a thing.
it happens.
You,
It happens. So, but yes, it's yes, big spoilers, huge spoilers, Death Star style spoilers. I think
yeah, big kaboom.
indeed.
So, where do we start on this episode?
It was to start at the beginning. We can get to the good stuff sort of in chronological order because I think that's
As is
the thing. Because
tradition.
as is tradition, and of course we opened with a really cool Slave One space battle of sorts, which I thought was really nice seeing.
Yeah, the initial plan of our band of merry men is to infiltrate a small little star destroyer of what's his face, General
Moff
Gideon,
Gideon.
Moff Gideon. Yes, and they capture a Imperial shuttle, not named Titanium, weirdly enough. And I don't know if it was on purpose that special shuttle because it has on board the scientists we've met 2 or 3 times now in this
Yeah,
series.
Dr. Pershing is the name of the scientist, the clone, and they did mention clone as well
Clone
in
specialist, yes.
clone specialist. That's the first time that's been mentioned in the 2
Officially
seasons.
confirmed.
Yeah.
Which we all guessed because of the insignia he had on his clothes.
And they said he was what's interesting is the pilot said he was a high value target as well.
Yes.
So what does that mean? That's a nice little sort of nugget of.
I'm thinking that meant that the New Republic, aka the rebels, are hunting down more or less the cloners to make sure that nobody is redoing what Palpatine once started.
Maybe it could be that the whole thing with
Or
Camino
they
is
want to
out.
do
But
it themselves and need specialists.
yeah, we don't know. Is it that whole World War II thing where a lot of the scientists from
Yeah, I
the
just
Axis
was
pilots?
thinking about Werner von Braun too.
Yeah, and paperclip, as it was in the US, where a lot of the scientists that had been working for the Axis were relocated to do things like the rocket projects and stuff. So is it that? We don't know. Lots of, shall we say, opportunities for other stories. But do you get a feeling that that pilot was just egging himself on to be shot in the face like he was?
It was a bit weird having one pilot going, "Oh, don't shoot us, we're helping," and then the other guy taking the valued target as hostage and shooting his comrade.
Yeah.
For what? I can't make heads or tails on how he wanted to get out of that situation.
Especially when he started poking Cara Dune about Alderaan. I just thought, you're dead. I'm sorry. She's warning you. She's warning you.
And then he gets shot in the face.
Yes.
Not by
That
Cara.
was inevitable, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was waiting for a more Western-like standoff, but yeah, it was a quick and easy solution.
It was. And then we get Slave One flying over an industrial planet and landing. at like a small dock almost, wasn't it? It was like a out of the way space field
Yeah,
almost.
next to a very recognizable ship.
Yeah, that looked really good. Actually, saying that the dagger fighter, the Mandalorian, it is a dagger fighter, isn't it? I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And at first I was, why do they put this ship here? And when Boba Fett and the Mandalorian enter the bar, whatever it is, we
Hmm.
know why that dagger ship is there.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
Bo-Katan and one of her loyal soldiers.
Hmm. Who we all know as Sasha Banks from the WWE. So when she was asked, because Katie was sort of dropping little hints, I think, in her interview, but when they interviewed Mercedes Vicario, I think is I think it was, but Sasha Banks is anybody that sees her wrestling. She said, "No, I'm in no more episodes," so she can keep a secret.
Well, she better has.
Yeah. Um, so yes, we get the Mandalorian and Fett meeting up with Bo-Katan and that character. And did you see the interesting wordplay with Fett and Bo-Katan,
I don't think so.
where she called him, where she started saying to Fett, "You're not a Mandalorian," and she then and he started calling her princess,
Oh god, yes.
and then she called Django his donor.
Yeah, but he refers to him as his father, and
Exactly.
I think that
There was the niggle, and then she goes around and says, "I've heard your voice 1,000 times as well."
yeah, I think it's safe to say those two are not on very friendly terms at the
No, they're
beginning.
not. Because she turned around and said, "You're not. Was it your disgrace to that armor as well?" and stuff like that. Which it's technically true that that Fett isn't a Mandalorian. Django was the foundling. Boba isn't.
Yeah, but as far as I understood what was given as lore in the this series is that it's true for him to be a Mandalorian because it's passed down from his father. And
Right.
technically, a clone is nothing but an offspring, only not via ordinary
Yeah.
biological means.
It was just I was wondering that's why she was doing the needle with him, the fact that calling Madonna, saying you're not a Mandalorian, because Boba you know it wasn't of that sort of, wasn't like the foundling and stuff, but if it is spread through sort of that line, then maybe yes, it's just her perception of Django. I think maybe more.
And maybe it's simply because she's having to carry her own cross
Yes.
in
Hmm.
terms
Yeah.
of getting back on the throne.
Hmm. Yeah. And then we have a little bit of a fight between Boba and
Mercedes character.
the Mercedes character, which was interesting. It was like tornado DDT using the jetpack, and then them sort of both firing their flame weapons at the same time
Yeah,
to
they
cancel each other out.
it was a bit of siblings getting
Yes,
on at each other, and then the parents stepping and saying, "Shut it, keep
yes,
down."
indeed. And then we, after sort of that, there's is uh the Mandalorian mentions that they can take her to Moff Gideon, so
And
both
that
Bo and her
and I think he
uh,
gets her
help her.
by promising her to keep the cruiser
Yes,
for her task to retake Mandalore if they
and
get there and can take the child.
the saber as well, because I think she says he's got something I want, and she says Moff Gideon's mine, and he goes, "Yeah, I just want to get the child."
Yeah,
That's all he cared about. He didn't care about Gideon. So then we cut to them all on either it'll be the shuttle, I'm thinking, without Fett, of course. So there's Cara Dune, Fennec is there, Bo-Katan, um, the Mercedes character. I need to look that name up. And Dr. Pershing's there, and of course the Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin's there, and they're sort of going through a plan of what's going on and things like that.
Yeah.
With it. So Cosca Reeves, that's it. Right. So the Dr. Persian's sort of telling them where things are, like where the child's being held,
And where
where
the massive
the
amount of Dark Troopers is held.
yeah, that as well. So they get all that information and then they set it up so that it's going to look like the shuttle is being attacked by, of course, Slave One. And there's more niggle between Fett and Bo-Katan there, more the reference to calling her princess and things
Yeah.
like that. So that was quite. It's like
She tells him
yeah,
to make the shots look real, and he says simply, "Princess, just make sure your shields are up."
yeah. So it's like, okay, they're definitely not going to like each other, are they?
Not in the current situation, no.
No. So we get that scene of the shuttle sort of being attacked by Slave One and them being told to keep away from the launch
Launch
area
tubes.
of the launch tubes, which I thought was quite cool because we've never seen that before. We've never seen how the ties are launched from that. And it reminded me of Battlestar Galactica, but also Buck Rogers as well.
Yeah,
It's
it's
using like the almost being
and I
shot out of
think
the
the
cannon.
main reason is because in the original trilogy, TIE fighters are getting dropped from the hangar, so they don't have a
Yeah,
launch tube, and the fighters from the prequels, where the Senate is, they have this um, long hatch going at the center of the hull that opens and closes.
yeah.
So
So
this is a sort of a middle ground. There's no hatch to be opened, but there's only enough room for one
mhm,
plane to get in or out.
yeah. And I mean the light cruiser, because that's what it is of similar design to the ones that we see in sort of the Clone Wars and stuff
Yeah,
with
very.
where
It's
that
small, 3 engines at the
yeah.
back.
Mhm. So and we have seen this design of ship before. We saw it was originally in Star Wars Rebels as a ship type. So that's where they've taken it from. So it's been in canon before. So this ship has, when we get to see it properly, because we've seen it in sort of in bits, in like quick glimpses and stuff like that. I think we saw it a little bit better when Fett first went up and saw it in that episode where he comes back
Mhm.
fully. And then, of course, we've seen it a bit better in this episode, and we saw the landing plane. And of course, they've managed to launch a couple of fighters before they head straight
Yeah,
the
I think
crashing of the shuttle.
2 or 3 get out,
Mhm,
and the shuttle. So Bo-Katan is always going on. This is an emergency. We need an emergency clearance, and simply heads on to the landing bay and
mhm,
forces them to shut down launching of any more TIE fighters, and then they
mhm,
more or less crash into that small little part of the ship and block all fighters going out.
mhm. So, so they managed to crash land. I think it's probably the best.
Yeah, I think that was deliberate, more or less.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
if she really wanted, they could have made a decent landing.
Hmm. And then we get the ties chasing after Boba, and then of course he turns the guns around the opposite way and starts blasting
Yeah, he makes
the
short work
chasing
of
ties.
them and leaves.
Yeah, which is nice. I was expecting them to possibly kill him.
No, I didn't think so.
I thought they might have went there and possibly killed the character, but it was nice to see that they've actually keeping the character going. I mean, yes, he is one of the sort of the mainstays of the
Also, he's one of the
universe.
biggest pilots in there, so
True.
why should he get
Yeah.
blown out of the sky by 2 measly TIE fighters?
You never know with the way Dave and John have been playing with toys. It's like let's throw everybody a curve, shall we?
Yeah, that picture I think was more or less really fitting. For
Hmm.
anybody who doesn't know, there's a picture floating around in the internet showing, I think, an old ad from the 80s. Two kids
Yes.
playing with 8080s and an 80ST and some other toys, being really, really excited as they are in these commercials. And the subtitle is Forlonely and
Favreau.
Favreau planning the next episode of The Mandalorian. Which isn't too far off, to be honest.
It's definitely not too far off the truth. This is,
I actually could see any enthusiast Star Wars director picking up toys and just setting up on the table and see how cool would that be.
Pew 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 pew.
Imagine Steve Stansweet going through his collection, picking up things, putting them on table, making a picture, sending it to Dave Filoni, and saying, "How about this?"
See that happening. So we get the shuttle bay's doors dropping, and probably one of the best scenes, I think, where it's 4 lead female characters kicking ass to get to the bridge. It was just like
2 Mandalorians, 1 rebel dropper, and a criminal sharpshooter going berserk in an Imperial hangar. Did you notice that one of the pilots actually surrendered?
Did he?
Yeah,
I didn't
on the
notice. I was
far
too busy
right,
watching the stormtroopers drop left, right, and center.
on the far right, there was an Imperial pilot in black
All
armor
right.
holding his hands up and taking small steps back and getting shot at the face.
Yeah, somehow I don't think they were going to stop with it.
So
And
there
then
was definitely a no prisoners taken approach on this one.
definitely, I quite like the scene with the as they're walking through and they come across that walkway, and stormtroopers come out in front of them. It's the one over the sort of the bay,
Over the hangar
and
bay.
over the hangar bay, and then the two Mandos drop.
Yeah,
And so
jump.
the front stormtroopers get it, and then ones from behind come around to get them, and the two jetpacks roars. The two of them come up from either side and just blast them. It was like, yeah,
Easy pickings.
definitely was like, yeah, you're done. That's it. You're done.
I think the most likable part I had in this section of the episode was when the big shooty gun of our rebel
Yes.
dropper friend suddenly stopped working, and she simply made the best orc impression ever, turning the gun around and just slapping it in the faces of the stormtroopers.
Yes, and then slammed it on the ground to get it working again.
Which didn't help at first, only later.
No, it didn't. It did later.
And then,
And as they're walking, as they're doing their thing, we get the Mandalorian coming out of the shuttle and heading to sneaking.
very
Yes,
stealthy.
yes, sneaking to rescue the child with the spear on his back.
Yeah, making his way to the prison cells and trying not to get caught by any stormtroopers or personnel. I can't remember. Is his encounter with the dark troopers before or after he meets on the cell? I think it's before.
It's before the cell because the dark troopers are on the way, and he's got the comm thing.
Yeah,
I
think we forgot to mention that after they've started firing in the hangar bay, Moff Gideon gives the order to activate the dark troopers, which usually takes up a few minutes according to the scientists they've caught earlier. So it's not an instant turn on, but a now boot him up,
yes,
doing a self-test.
Yeah, it was like Iron Man from Iron Man 1, where they're typing into the computer and watching the power levels rise as their thing up. But it was interesting that they've got to be kept cold as well, they were saying, didn't he? They had to be kept at cooled as well.
Because if they're otherwise they take up too much energy.
Yeah. And then of course we get them so that we get the scene of the dark troopers activating, so you get the thunk and all of them turning to the door to march into the corridors, and then of course Din rushes and you get the no as he puts the command tube in to shut the doors, but of course one of them manages to get its hands in, pry the door open, and punch him back, and then get out as the doors close. And then while the front rest ones are busy punching at the door to get out.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that those beasts are made of what they're called again?
Beskar.
Beskar, because he shoots at them and nothing happens.
Yeah, I was wondering that as well. Is that how, or in the very first episode, well, the first 3 episodes of this entire season, in season 1, where the client has that canister of Beskar, is that how he's got it? That Gideon has given him it, as
Though
payment,
I,
and has Gideon then used it to create the the troopers?
could be, but
But
I'm just thinking the Beskar, pure Beskar, also
uh
deflects lightsabers, and
yes,
mm,
yeah,
I've
exactly. That's what I was thinking.
maybe it's not full Beskar, but a composite, or maybe it's just a light plating,
hmm it might be plating from something like a almost like a vehicle. So it
or
might be that type.
or a composite alloy with Beskar in it.
Yeah, something like that. But yes, it does deflect a bit of the standard blaster bolts.
Yeah, so Din and this one MK3 Dark Trooper exchange punches, though it's more like the Dark Trooper is punching Din's head into the wall, quite literally.
Yes, it was like holy sh. It was
That's
like
gonna leave a mark.
he's definitely going to leave a mark. And then Din tries to get the gun again and flames it up close. And I thought that might have done something, but it didn't. It just possibly pissed it off.
A wee bit.
And then, of course, he manages to get the spear and ram the spear through its head, which
Which
seemed
worked.
to work. Yep. And then we get an intercut with that, of course, is the others rushing to the bridge and taking the bridge. And of course, Gideon's not there. So when Din manages to get to the child, taking out 2
Well,
stormtroopers on the
you're
way.
skipping a step.
Which one? Which
Din
one?
manages to flush the
Oh
MK3s
yes,
out to space.
yes, he does. He does. It's a reminiscent of from the episode where all the stormtroopers get sucked out of that
Yeah. We have
transport.
locked them into the. You did what?
Yes, exactly. So all of the Mark threes get flushed out into space,
Spoilers,
and
only for a few
spoilers.
minutes.
Yeah. Well, and then of course Din heads off to the cell, taking out 2 stormtroopers by stabbing one with a spear and then
The other one
basically
gets choked.
snapping the other one's neck with the spear as a thing. And then he opens the door, and who's waiting for him is Gideon.
Yes, with the lit dark saber hovering above the head of our little friend.
Indeed. And then of course there's some interplay between the two of them where basically Din says he doesn't care about the saber or anything that Gideon's doing. He just wants the child.
Yeah, and Gideon. I think this was a very strange dialogue when Gideon put back the dark saber and said, "Well, I've got from him what I wanted. I've got this
hmm
blood. Take him, leave. Just never come back and bother me again."
hmm Yeah.
At which point I thought to myself, "This is so convincing. I actually could believe this."
Yes. It was like, is he telling the truth? Is he twisting it? And it was like, not, because as soon as he picks up the child, or did he did pick up the child and start walking away, didn't he?
I think he
Oh
just
no,
no. I think he
bent
bent
over.
down and grabbed for the
Yes,
child, and in that instance, Gideon lights up the dark saber and tries to
hack it.
decapitate Din, but of course, having his spear, nothing happens.
Having the best goal, because he hits the armor first. He hits the backpack, and
Yeah,
then Din sort of holds his arms up the same way he did with Ahsoka as he's battered back out of the door, and then he pulls the spear out. So it's spear versus dark saber, which we all guessed was going to happen. I think
yeah,
from
and
there
it's
was a
very
little bit of
interesting
foreshadowing.
during the fight when they have longer periods where dark saber is pressed against
Mhm.
the spear, that the spear starts glowing, so it's not impenetrable. It's just
No.
taking a bit of time.
hmm Yeah, and I had Game of Thrones thoughts there, by the way, as well, when that happens because of Pedro Pascal being Game of Thrones using a spear as well. So it was like, are they doing that? Are they? Oh, okay.
Well, that would have been a
you
very
know,
far push.
it
But
was, yes, it was a bit of a push. But then we get them fighting, and then of course Din is able to disarm Gideon, beat him, and get the child and capture Gideon alive, which I thought was interesting. I thought they might have killed him. I
yeah,
thought Din might have been the one that actually killed him.
which would have led to a weird dialogue on the bridge, I think. Maybe it was simply a vehicle to get Gideon do his lines on the bridge.
Yes, there was some foreshadowing. I think a little bit of foreshadowing is they've kept them alive, and of course, as they walk on the bridge, and Bo-Katan is standing there, and Din walks in with the dark saber, and then we get the exposition where Gideon says, "Oh, this should be interesting." I think before that, doesn't he? He says this should be interesting, and then of course we get the dialogue between the two of them, and then Gideon saying, and then she needs it, and so
She
Din was.
needs the Darksaber to have a valid claim on the throne, but
Mhm.
it can't be passed on, it must be earned. So she would need to defeat the Mandalorian in combat in order to have
Mhm.
proper right to the throne. And he simply goes, "Well, I concede, here's the saber, take it.
Mhm.
I don't want it."
This is where I've got one nitpick with the episode, and that's it. Because in Rebels, where the Darksaber reappears, Sabine Wren actually physically gives it to Bo-Katan, and she takes it. In
Well,
the episodes of in the episode of Rebels, which is I think it's called Heroes of the Mandalore, it's 2 parts. Yeah, Sabine has the Darksaber, and she gives it to Bo-Katan at the end of the episodes, and Bo-Katan takes it, with everybody there that's in Mandalorian or kneeling and acknowledging Bo-Katan as the rightful heir to
maybe
Mandalore.
there has been some political uproar since then.
Maybe, but it was just my one, the one thing that was like, has John and Dave spoken about this? Is this something that it's foreshadowing what's coming in season 3, I think. There's
Yeah,
definitely there.
there is
There's
going to be some conclusion to that.
mhm, there's definitely is. It's season 4 was the 2-part Heroes of Mandalore episodes of Rebels, where you meet Bo-Katan, and Sabine's the one that gives her the saber in it. It's just, it was like, they've done that for a reason, I think, and and you can see they've done it for a reason. It was just a little bit more like, well, you did this previously, but you're not doing that now. So is there something? There's something else must be going on here. You've done it for they've done it for a reason, and that that's all I'm really
Yeah,
say about it.
there is very probably something
Hmm.
going on behind.
In the offshoots for what's coming possibly in season 3. So we know we've got a season 3. So you know, but it was just an interesting sort of thing of just just that one thing sort of went. Mm,
Yeah,
just
but then
just a
the
bit, but it
episode draws your attention away from that by
exactly
having the Dark Troopers rejoin the family fun
it
and
does. Yes, so we get
entering
the
the ship
alarm.
again.
Indeed, so we get an alarm of people boarding, and it says, and when they ask life signs, they go, no life signs, and we get probably the whole platoon of 30
Yeah,
Dark Troopers returning.
and with a smug, grim Moff Gideon goes, "Well, you had your problems with one of them. How
Mhm.
will you deal with a whole platoon?"
Exactly. So the people in the bridge that have locked themselves in the bridge after they say close the blast doors, and we get a bunch of Dark Troopers standing outside the corridor there, and the rest of the Dark Troopers sort of filing out through the ship. And as they all preparing themselves, we get Moff Gideon looking down as well and covering a blaster with his cloak.
Yeah, which is a terrible oversight, given that there are ample people there that
Mhm.
should have known better than to leave guns laying around.
Yep. Exactly. So, and then we get the scene of the Dark Trooper starting to punch their way into the bridge, and we get this soundtrack starting of the sort of this quiet music.
Yeah, and they are really methodical. There's no tank like we just rip this apart. No, they get into position and start punching the door in a very uh, yeah, how would you call it? Um, precise and
Yeah.
mechanical way.
Mhm.
Very
And then
planned.
and then we get another alarm, don't we?
Yes, there's a ship approaching.
Mhm.
A X-wing. One.
A single
A
X-wing.
single X-wing. And my first thought was, well, that's surely one of those X-wings we have met before. One, and who is going to get help, or there
Mhm.
is even reconnaissance for any rebel capital ship coming in, and we
Mhm.
will have some glorious battle on the ship happening. And nope, just
Nope.
one X-wing.
One X-wing comes in and goes into the hangar, and as Bo-Katan sort of communicates to us, because Cara Dune has that wonderful line of one X-wing, we're saved, which I thought was quite funny. It was like,
Yeah, and then
um,
we see on the monitors a cloaked figure going around with a lightsaber,
mm,
clad in black, with a black glove on one hand,
well,
chopping
we
up dark
Dark Troopers.
troopers.
Well, we don't actually. It's quite the way through the scene, that this whole sequence, before we see we see the character properly, because it's all done on that on video on the screen, isn't it? It's all
Yeah, the surveillance
quiet,
screen. So we
and
only
then
see a lightsaber. We can't tell the color
exactly.
of the lightsaber, but we can tell that one hand is gloved and one is not. And at that point, I had seen a spoiler picture, but I was under the impression that the spoiler picture had a blue lightsaber. So I was wondering if this would be the introduction of any new
Mhm.
rebel force wielding personality.
Well, the other thing as well is as the figure, the cloak, as soon as I saw the cloaked figure, yeah, I went, they haven't. My brain went, no,
Yeah,
can't
that
can't be.
that
They
was mine.
they haven't gone there, and if they have, boy, that's huge.
Just cut. Let us cut back to our last episode. I think since this is more or less the ending of this
Mhm.
episode, we didn't plan for this.
No,
We
no, no,
thought
no,
this
no.
would be a giant ass, uh, what is it called, cliffhanger, which
Yes,
it isn't.
no, it's not a cliffhanger. I thought it was
Not
going to
at
be the
all.
cliffhanger.
Not in the slightest.
No,
And from all possible, not yet shown people of the expanded universe we thought that would appear, starting with Thrawn and everybody else, we didn't expect this to be him.
no, nobody expected it. It's like Monty Python, isn't
Yeah.
it? Nobody
Nobody
expected the
expects
Spanish.
the Spanish Inquisition amongst the
Exactly.
weaponry are.
But it's the interesting thing is before we cut and we see the color of the lightsaber and all of that, when it cuts to actually footage of the character walking through butchering dark troopers, um, we get Bo-Katan going, it's a Jedi, and the look on Moff Gideon's face,
He looks a bit scared.
he looks scared, and they all do a little bit. If you think about it, they all, are like, what?
Well,
So I think what
except for our rebel trooper friend, none of
Mhm.
those have very fond memories of rebels of Jedi, maybe, except
Well,
maybe Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan possibly does, but it's more the fact that they managed to put the mystique around that word, around Jedi. They've managed to say, that, and I think that's what Dave, in the interviews that he's done, but when they're talking about the gallery series, where he was talking about George's idea behind the Jedi going, Jedi will put the lightsaber on the table, and this is how they will negotiate. You will do this, otherwise, I'm going to pick this up and cleave you in two. You know, very much of that. That stoic. These are very powerful people. But then, of course, it cuts to the color version, and the first thing you see coming in there is a nice, vibrant green lightsaber. And
Yeah,
when I
and
saw that, I went, "They have."
yeah, and at some point, very shortly after that, you can see his belt buckle,
Hmm.
and
And the gloved
at
hand properly, and
at that point, it's clear as day.
mhm,
This is Luke.
it's Luke.
Couldn't
It's
be any
Luke.
other Jedi.
effing Skywalker at the height, and we're not talking about Last Jedi Luke Skywalker, or
No,
you know,
we're talking about Return of the Jedi. I'm a master now, and I need my students.
well, or post Return of the Jedi, because it's 5 years after, so
Yeah,
it's like post Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, probably at the height of his powers.
yeah, and if not, then just before, and especially with all his training done
Mhm.
and with everything he could
Exactly.
learn, potentially learn.
Mhm. And we get the wonderful parallel. Did you see the parallel as well when he goes up? Because Luke's basically cutting through all the dark troopers, and then he goes up in the lift. So we get a corridor scene with Luke, like we had with Vader from Rogue One.
Yeah,
So we
the
got that
door
sort of
opens
parallel.
and he just walks through the dark troopers, cutting them down left,
Mhm.
right, center.
Exactly. I like the crush as well,
Yeah,
which I think is used by Anakin in the Clone Wars. I think Anakin does that sort of thing with the droid.
well, he does
Just
that when he
crushes them.
wakes up as Vader and
Mhm.
crushes the whole medical facility he's in.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very much um sort of is he's almost tapping into that part of his, of the force, that his father embraced, to do that. It's like using all of his powers. And then of course as this is going on, they're watching, and then Gideon
Tries to
basically,
kill Bo-Katan with his
yeah,
hidden blaster, which
and
fails because she got her armor, and then he tries to shoot the kid.
where Din jumps in front of it, and then tries to turn the blaster on himself and gets a heavy rifle butt in the face from Cara Dune.
Oh, you think that was heavy? I think this was a more or less very gentle touch.
Well, it just means that we now have for season 3, depending on what they do, story wise, maybe an escaping Moff Gideon.
Or one that is getting freed.
Hmm. Things, something like that. It opens up the possibility of having this villain still around, which is
Yeah.
good, because a lot of TV shows use the trope, and especially in the last episode of a season, oh, we're going to kill the villain. Buffy did that every season, killed that big bad at the end of the seasons, just about, apart from Spike. But so it was nice to see that they didn't kill him. So that opens up some story threads that we can sort of pull through as well. And I didn't think they would kill, because he shoots Bo-Katan. It was like, did he kill her? Well, you saw the blaster shots bounce off her, and you see her standing up at the end.
Yeah, it's
But I don't think they were going to kill her anyway, because there's too much story there to deal
no.
with as well.
It would have been a too easy way out of this dark saber thing.
Yeah, and I don't think they're looking for that. And then, of course, we get the child, or Grogu, touching the screen as Luke is basically laying waste to all of these as well. So he's watching on.
Yeah,
And then we get
I
the
want to do what he does.
yes. And then, of course, we get the Din going, open the door, after he's butchered all of the dark troopers out
Yeah,
front. He
and
goes,
the others
and
are not so convinced that that
no, they're
would be a
not.
good idea because they are clearly still scared.
Still stunned and shocked and scared by it. So they do. He goes over, pushes open the door, and we get walking in the costume. We don't see his face initially, and then he pulls back the hood to reveal Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill.
Yeah, as a deep fake, whatever computer generated face it
Exactly.
is, it's not perfect, but it's not too bad after all.
It's not Justice League bad, shall we say?
Well,
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's something else. But
yeah,
so we get him, and of course he starts speaking where Din goes, "Are you a Jedi?" And he goes, "I am." And and he sort of gestures and says, "Come, little one." And the child doesn't want to go with him initially, so Din picks him up and speaks to him,
yeah.
and the child
He wants your
reaches,
permission. Are the words
yes.
Luke uses,
Hmm. And then, of course, the child reaches out to touch Din's face, so
which
he
isn't
takes the
possible
helmet
because he
off.
still wears his helmet. And this is a point in this episode or this series until now where I have to say, I personally think that the actor, oh god, his name escapes me,
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Costa, does a really good job of transporting how it feels for a father. Being a dad myself, I couldn't bring myself to give my child away like that. And yeah, I think this is it was a very good point of acting.
It was.
Some
And
people may say it was over the top, or maybe too much, but I don't think so.
no, he was very good. And it was an on point piece of,
It
of
felt
thing.
genuine. Let's put
Mhm.
it that way.
And he takes the helmet off as well, which in front of other people. So that means now that I think he's starting to question in his mind, apart from the child wanting to see him.
Mm.
Yeah. That from this episode and the previous episode as well, that I think in his mind as well, he's starting to think about, well, there's this group here that are Mandalorian, they take their helmets off.
There's
I think there's
some
something
character
going on there.
development
Yeah.
happening, and I think that will be a major part of the upcoming story arc for the third season. I'd
Mhm.
say
Yeah, because I think
finding his own way within Mandalorian
Mhm.
society and
Yeah,
law.
and he puts the child down, and as he puts the child down, we get
We
the
get a
other
visitor.
nostalgia. We get R2D2. It's like R2 turns up, and it's like,
Yeah, and then the two seemingly have a conversation of sorts,
hmm
and
yes. So
they,
there's lots of internet speculation about, did R2 know Grogu from the Coruscant Academy, because
did
he
you
would have
see
been there with
that
Anakin.
one picture that somebody posted with a transcribed translation of what R2 said?
No.
I hope this little green one doesn't touch our thing.
Yes. Yeah, because it looks like Yoda, doesn't he? So it's like,
Oh no, not one of those again.
yes, that's the other one, isn't it? No. This little sod's a thief, put him back.
He's not getting my lamb.
And then we get Luke picking him up,
And then
and
they leave.
they leave, and we get that cool sort of Luke in the turbo lift, which is similar to what we saw almost in Return of the Jedi, where he went up to meet the Emperor.
Yeah,
It's exactly the same design, but this is the reverse of him going in with the child, turning around, so you get the swish of the cloak and the doors closing, and then it cuts to black, and
yeah.
then
And
we
I think
somebody was cutting onion, I'm sure, in the house at the time.
pretty sure some ninja cutting onions, I say
Yeah,
always.
I think there was some ninja cutting onions
Uh,
in our house here.
but did you notice last time we said when the Silver Crest was blasted, he
hmm
picked up the rubble, the little silver ball.
Yes, he didn't
He
give it to him,
didn't
did
give
he?
it to him.
Mm.
So I'm saying that this may be some plot device, even though later on, maybe a
Yeah.
visit to Uncle Luke in his
hmm
academy.
Exactly. Maybe a visit to see the child and stuff like that. I've saw a lot of people, and I've since the episode ended, the internet's lost its collective brain, as it usually does, with people thinking, great, wonderful, and it was, and you've got the gamut of people thinking it was great, thinking this is the Luke that we should have got in the prequel trilogy. I'm not, I'm not going down that rabbit hole of good
No.
or not good. All Star Wars is good. That's where I stand. But the ones that are sort of mentioned it was the fact, or the people think so. It's, well, we now know Grogu's going to die because Kylo Ren writes up the Academy.
Yeah,
Doesn't
but
necessarily mean that.
and
It's like,
also, uh, the academy burns years later,
exactly.
which all could mean that Grogu has left the academy at that point,
Mhm.
and B, we don't get. I can't remember that. Even though the academy burned, that everybody was killed.
Exactly. So
Because if I remember correctly, even Kylo Ren had some followers leaving
yes,
with
the
him
Knights
the
of Ren.
planet, so there will be survivors of sorts.
Yeah. So it was just like, that. But as the credits are playing and stuff like that, and you watch the credits, the music, I left it running, and then
As
we
you
get
do when a season ends, because if watching movies in theaters have taught us anything, you need to stay until the credits have ended.
Exactly. And we get a stinger, don't we? We get a
Oh,
shot of a planet.
we get a gigantic carrot dangling before our heads, in
We
the
do.
shape of two suns, and a camera
Exactly.
going over to a very distinct looking palace,
Exactly. On a certain planet in
a
the Outer
deserty planet.
Rim, deserty planet indeed, called Tatooine. And we get a certain Major Domo sitting on a throne, don't
Yeah,
we? We
Bib
get Bib
Fortuna has
Fortuna.
taken over the reins from the more or less recently deceased Jabba the Hutt,
Mhm.
and I thought it very funny that the first thing that happened in that scene, interior scene, that somebody is getting shot and falling down the stairs. This
Yes.
this seems to be some kind of tradition in that palace.
Is
Shoot
this
someone atop
this
the
just
stairs and kick him
history
down.
repeating itself, isn't it? It's just history repeating itself again. So we get, of course, basically turning up first, of course, is Fennec. And she takes out the guards. Bib sends another guard up and he dies, and then you get the shadow and her coming down the steps, and there's as all evil crime lords have, a tied up Twi'lek.
Yeah, and a weak way on his side who gets shot
Exactly.
immediately.
Yes. So Fennec releases
The
the
Twi'lek.
Twi'lek by shooting the chains and nods ahead to tell her to disappear. And then we get another shadow coming down the stairs first, don't we? And we recognize that shadow.
Yeah, it's so Boba Fett returns. Bit Fortuna, a bit shaken, a bit fat on the throne.
Yes, he, he,
I
he
wonder
got a little
how
bit chubby, didn't he?
I wonder how fast he gained that after the death of Java.
It was a COVID lock-in, I tell you.
Well, and then he makes, oh no, I'm so glad you're back. I thought we heard stories, but we weren't
Yes, there's been
true, and it's so
so
nice
many.
to have you back. And then he shoots him.
Yes, Boba just shoots him straight in the face, just about, and then walks up, and we get Fennec heading to the back, and
I
Boba
think
walks up.
she sits on the
She
side of the
does at the end, but
throne,
she goes
and
to get a drink first.
yeah, and he sets himself into the throne, and then we get a
Exactly.
title card, the Book of Fett.
The Book of Boba Fett, yes.
Does it really
Coming
say Boba Fett? I was.
Yes, no, it said Boba as well. It was
Okay.
both. It was the Book of Boba Fett coming in 2021. December of
December
2021.
2021, yeah. Which coincidentally is the same date that is given for the third season of The Mandalorian, which
Exactly.
immediately led to speculations that A, is The Mandalorian season 3 the Book of Fett, or is this be another season, a different series? And yeah, I think from what we have seen on the interwebs by non-official sources until now, um, we can make the assumption that those are going to be two different
Yeah,
series.
definitely two separate series, I think. I mean, there was no way Disney were going to announce the Book of Fett during their investor call when they knew they were so close to the release of this episode.
Yeah, and have you seen the video I gave to you? These by Disney Star Wars, the 40 years of,
Yes, I
where
watched
the
that one.
one director was mentioned as a upcoming Disney Plus Star Wars series, which
Yeah.
I found a bit weird to have everybody else in that clip being
Well,
quoted with his actual series in the universe, and just this one going, nope, we are
there
not
was
going to tell you what she does.
there was two actually.
Oh, did I miss one?
No, or I might have said on Deborah Chow's Up and Coming, but if you look, Diego Luna, executive producer of Andor.
Mm,
Diego Luna, who plays Cassius
yeah.
Andor, Cassian Andor, is the executive producer of the show as well, and it had an executive producer.
But was he mentioned as executive producer?
Yeah,
Not. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, there's that.
So,
And
and then we
did you also think that the executive lady was the only one sounding not really
it's
honest on this video?
it's not so much that it's just the way Kathleen Kennedy is. I think more than anything, she's there to, shall we say, look after the ship more than anything.
Yeah, but
And
even if
it's
that's so, she could have a bit more passion. It sounded so uninterested by her. Everybody else was like
Mm.
children in the candy store, trying not to spoil too much and
Yeah.
giving information that they shouldn't be. But
I think
at the
it's
same
just.
point, they sounded so happy.
Mhm. I think it's more the thing of, it's Kathleen Kennedy. She's been there since, yeah, since young Indiana Jones. She was working with George and stuff, so she's seen it all, and she's going to keep the typical sort of corporate line, shall we say, with the way that she is and stuff. So I'm not reading much into it, other than maybe just reading off a script. I was like, yeah, it's I'm going to read
Maybe
off
that's
this
the
script.
problem. Maybe she wanted to
Yeah.
do it by the book and actually read a script while
Mhm.
everybody else was simply interviewed and was
Yeah.
going off their minds.
Yes, like the rest of the world.
So, your rating of this final episode of
Can we
the
go
season
beyond
two?
10? It was an excellent ending. I mean, it shows the amount of confidence that Disney and Lucasfilm have in what Dave and John have done to basically give them one of the biggest toys in the toy box, Luke Skywalker, and go, yeah,
Don't
okay,
break it.
don't break it. There you go. And of course, as well as the director, Peyton Reed, another good episode because he did the second episode with the spiders.
Yeah, I thought the only thing that well dampened the joy at the very end when the book of Boba Fett was announced was the fact that Boba Fett, aka Jeremy Bulloch, actually died
Yeah.
shortly before airing.
Mm.
I think 2 days before that.
Yeah, it was
There was a bit
Wednesday
of
or
a
Tuesday. It was, yeah. It's nice to see the fact that they have resurrected the character, and it's a shame that Jeremy did pass away. And that's two we've lost this year. We lost Dave, we lost Vader, and we lost
uh,
Boba Fett. But it's their legacies, you know, do live on in what we are able to enjoy on the screen and stuff like that. So
yeah, and looking,
um,
I was looking up what Jerry Bulloch has done aside
mhm,
from being Boba Fett, and I was again, this is my ignorance on who plays what role where because I simply watch the movies and enjoy the movies as they are. I didn't know that he played an Imperial
yep,
officer
mhm,
in Return in Empire Strikes Back, which is
yep,
a bit weird having two roles in the same movie, and he also did a captain in the prequels
yes, he
on
was
the
he was
Tantive 3.
yes, he was a Tantive 3 captain, and he's the Imperial officer that's bundling Leia into the lift where she goes, look, it's a trap. That's him.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, and a lot of shorts he has been appearing in
Yeah.
other series. So
He he was like Dave, and he was like Kenny, and he's like Tony Daniels and stuff, where they did a lot of conventioning. I met him at a convention. I was lucky enough to meet Jeremy back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Nice guy, really has, would speak to everybody. Was the last man on the dance, leaving the dance floor at the con. So
but to be honest, I
lovely guy.
think those roles or those people who aren't as recognized as the actor
No,
they are recognized by the roles, and
yeah,
fans love them to bits for him.
yes, yeah. And you've got to remember as well, as a vast majority of the people in the 70s that were doing in the 80s that were in Star Wars that were under makeup, a vast majority of them were British because they're filmed over here, so they've
Yeah,
got British actors to do those roles. But yes, it was sad, but yes, it was nice to see that they are doing justice to the character finally, and they've done that throughout the season with all of the different characters, bringing animated characters like Ahsoka and Bo-Katan into live action. Who would
yeah,
have thought?
and
Would
I
we have thought this?
I think what my personal takeaway from the Mandalorian is in this 2 seasons that we've seen so far is that they taken care and taken their time doing what they are doing so that it doesn't feel like a money grab
Yeah.
chill rush thing job.
Mhm.
It's well, I don't know if that's the correct word, but it feels wholesome and true
Yeah,
to
it's
the spirit of what is behind. Even though if we were to pick up a microscope and look for little things like the one you have in this season, where
mhm, the
the
dark
passing of the
sabers.
dark
Yeah,
saber isn't correctly,
mm.
we
or
will
or
find those things every
yeah,
time, anywhere. But I think having 16 episodes of a brand new series,
mhm,
I think there's just very, very few things that are, could potentially be annoying.
mhm. Yeah. There's nothing in there that's wrong. It's as if Disney have went right. We've got John Favreau wants to do a TV series, fine. You know, John launched Marvel, so that's fine. Oh, we've got Dave Filoni over there. What's Dave up to? Well, he did Clone Wars, he did Rebels, he did Resistance. You know, they're strong. You know, he
Successful?
worked very successful. They're very, strong in story. He worked under George. George actually hired him. George wanted him to executive produce and run Clone Wars. And he's steeped in this, so get him involved and get them involved and get the two of them together and see what they can do. And there's the toy box. Go and make something that yous want to watch, yous being fans, and I think that's what it is you've got fans making something that they know fans will like.
Yeah, and speaking of fans, I don't know if we have ever put back on that, but there's the scene where Moff Gideon lands uh, outside the client's uh, uh,
On
building,
the first season, yeah.
where they have so many troopers running around,
Hmm.
and they ran out of costumes, and
Yes, they
then the
did.
501st had to jump in and play
Yeah,
along. And I
it
think
was
this
Dave
this
made the
this
phone
was
calls.
must have been a field day for any member of the 501st, going, "Oh God, I'm going to be in a Star Wars thing."
Well, they weren't even told until they landed on set.
Yeah,
It's in the Disney. It's in the gallery. It's in the last, I think, the last episode of the gallery series where they're talking about it, and it was Dave that phoned up because they didn't have enough stormtrooper screen accurate stormtrooper costumes. So Dave phoned because he's an honorary member of the 501st and got these guys from all over America, just about. I think it was that came to basically come down and do the Star Wars. They were told, we need you for a Star Wars thing. Fine, we'll turn up. And then they were told, right, you're going to be on set, I think. And because then John Favreau said, we'll get you photos, but we won't give them to you until after the airing.
sign this non-disclosure,
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
we will keep your children here until this episode is released.
Yeah. But there we go. I think, from a point of view of series, it ended with a strong ending for this season 2, and it opened with a strong opening. So they've sort of bookended a very strong
Yeah,
story-driven science fiction show.
and I
Just happens to
think
be set with some
if
characters
worse
that we know.
things would happen and the Mandalorian would not get a third season for whatever reason, whatever
Yeah.
catastrophe lies ahead, I think this would be a decent closure for the story arc of Grogu going
Hmm.
to be a Jedi, hopefully someday.
Yeah. And what people need to remember, and I know there's a lot of people going, oh well, we're not going to see Grogu anymore. Technically, the show is called The Mandalorian. It's not called The Mandalorian and Grogu, The Mandalorian and the Child.
Or the child and his Mandalorian pet.
Yeah, it's not that. It's a show about that lead character in that armor, and I'm assuming season 3 will be more dealing with him, the fallout of passing on the child, what that's done to him, being influenced or
Yeah,
having the child as an influence,
and
and
maybe some more flashbacks to his youth and some explanation why there were droids attacking him
yeah,
way
of when,
back when.
yeah. So it's all golden,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably the best way to end.
Yes. Speaking of ending, we will end this episode here. Um, there won't be an episode for the next 2 weeks. We will take a small holiday break because simply we deserve it, I think. And we will be recording our next episode around the 10th of January 2021, if nothing catastrophe like happens.
Very
Knock
true.
on wood. So, everyone out there, stay safe. Have a nice, relaxing holiday. Try not to get too mental about anything that happens in the world. If you need help, there are hotlines out there everywhere. And simply talk to your loved ones, they will help you every time. Usually that works. With that said, Ralph, I thank you for the last 8 episodes. I'm looking
No
forward to
worries.
more.
Definitely looking forward to more.
Have a nice holiday. Stay indoors. It's the event.
Same to you, Tim. Have a nice holiday.
And I will see all of you next year. Until then, I was your host, and I'm going to be again. Bye.